imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total Protonic Reversal.
Protonic Reversal. Protonic Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rock about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's so one I choose to go my life too. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And take that away.
Yeah, that's my take on it. What series?
Protonic Reversal!
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed, indeed, indeed. It is a science thing. It is a science place. It is a scientific fact. We are all up in your face. Welcome to the one, the only...
Protonic Reversal.
That's right. Correct. Here we are again. Episode 156? I don't even know at this point. We're going to be welcoming one of my favorite guests to this show, as evidenced by the fact that I think he's been on this show 7 times? 6, 7, maybe 8. I'll figure it out during the music break. None other than Andrew Falkous, a.k.a. Falco, from mclusky, Future to the Left. Brilliant dude. Funny as hell. Incredibly talented. Just an awesome guy. And it should be a pretty good time. He's always a good time. Yeah, what is there to say? That should be awesome. For folks that are joining us for the first time, welcome. You are welcome. For folks that are not joining for the first time, thank you so much for listening to the show. Thank you so much for supporting the show, sharing it around, letting people know that you like it. That's kind of how these things happen. Folks that find value out of it, that's really, really awesome. Really appreciate that. There is a Patreon for people that want the episodes sooner in podcast form. Right now, that's about the sole use for it. $1 a month, $12 a year. You get the episodes, we won't say immediately, but very soon. There are people that have been very impatient for something that is a labor of love and very free. So if you are someone that's interested in that, patreon.com/Protonic Reversal. Otherwise, no ads, no sponsors, no kidding. Yeah, let's listen to a couple tunes. It's been a while since we had Falco on. We've got a lot to talk about, but let's go over the last Christian fitness record. A jammer like all the others. This is Hamsterland off Nuance the Musical. Goes a little something like this.
should win awards. If your Uncle Ray gets better, we could move into his shed and tend his flower beds through the warmer months. How long will we survive in Hamsterland? How long will we survive in Hamsterland? This is the bit at the end when your head explodes with the ridiculousness of it all. This is the bit, and this is the bit, and this is the bit, and this is the bit at the end where your best man reveals himself to be 14 years old. This is the bit at the end, is the bit at the S, is the bit at the S, is the bit at the S, is the bit at the end when the answer is simplified, so you have more time for drinking. This is the bit at the end, is the bit at the S, is the bit at the end, and I promise you that at Hamsterland fire comes first. This is the bit at the end. This is the bit at the end.
The bit at the end, Hamsterland. That's off of Nuance the Musical. The, I don't know, fourth, fifth Christian fitness record. There's a lot of them. They're all great. They're all worth listening to. Yeah, I can't remember the last one. When he was on last, I can't remember which one that is, but I'll figure that out pretty soon. Let's listen to one more Christian fitness song, then a Future of the Left tune, and we'll be talking to Falco. Yeah. Let's listen to one off of Slap Bass Hunks. This is Bruce Hated Puppies. Radio Now.
Puppies, he thought they ran like fannies. Many sighs took the prisoner's hand, many sighs took the prisoner's heart. Many sighs, Bruce hated puppies, he cursed the row of pet shops. Give the Labradors gluten-free pork chops, give the Bulldogs Charvel headstocks. They can play their own weddings, they can play their own wake. Now Bruce, he's a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun when he's not a lot of fun. The puppy thing isn't really representative. The puppy thing isn't really representative. Now Bruce, he's a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun when he's not a lot of fun. The puppy thing isn't really representative. The puppy thing isn't really representative. Puppies, he thought they barked to spite him. Once or twice he was sure they'd winked. Once or twice he suspected a grin. Once or twice, Bruce hated puppies. He cuts the heads from photos. Give the terriers beehive hairdos. Give the shih tzus tanning bed menus. They can fix their own boilers. They can comb their own coats. Now Bruce, he's a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun when he's not a lot of fun. The puppy thing isn't really representative. The puppy thing isn't really representative. Now Bruce, he's a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun when he's not a lot of fun. The puppy thing isn't really representative. The puppy thing isn't really representative. The puppy thing isn't really representative. The puppy thing isn't really.
Normal
Bruce Hated Puppies from Slap Bass Hunks by Christian Fitness. Yeah. Records are good. You should get them on Bandcamp. That's the only place I think that is the only place you will find them. Pretty sure, reasonably certain. Goes straight to the artist. Falco's ostensible solo project, but it's a band. Originally, he was going to call it Tremendous Fence, and this show actually world premiered the song Christian Fitness, but he changed his mind on it. So I didn't technically get an exclusive. Not technically. Future left. Running all over the way.
20 therapists want to tempt me with their tit rings. They should know that I own a werewolf and the sense to use it. A dead body in the boot of a Nova is the least of my problems. As long as there is still room for the shopping, the cheese and lager, a piece of the action. The prospect of running all over the wicked. The prospect. If any amateurs want to enter, they should write in. Enclosed steps and an application that we will fill in. The real price of successful business is constant vigil. I only came for the domination. The murder and dancing was just a distraction. The prospect of running all over the wicked. The prospect.
All right, there we go. Running all over the wicket. And we are indeed running all over the wicket. Don't you love it when radio people try to tie in a clever song title with being clever? I love it. And by love it, I mean I want to gouge out my eyes with the rusty owl. So, online right now, we have none other than Falco. Falco, how you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Did you make it back from your shopping trip in one piece? Is this a privileged information? Should I not be sharing this?
No, it's fine. It's not top secret. I went local and I went late. That's how I went in the end. But my earlier trip for a big supermarket run for the first time in days was a bit distressing. I'm doing my best, like most people, to be as optimistic as possible. But it's very difficult when you go outside and see how people start to act when there's just a little bit of sun to be optimistic. So I decided to just go back and hide until night fell, and then if there's anything egregious going on, well, it's dark and I can't make out details. So that seems a lot better. But I got pretty much everything I needed, apart from blueberries and a particular brand of beer that I wanted. So, you know what? It's going to be all right with a huge asterisk there.
Yes, of course. And did you find that people were observing social distancing practices? Is London doing?
There was simply fewer people around when it was dark. So by definition of there being less people present, people were obeying social distancing. It's like with anything, isn't it? People try and pin it on pregnant mothers or joggers or couples holding hands. The common denominator running through everybody who doesn't observe social distancing is they're a dick. Like I've experienced. I think I've experienced every walk of life because I spend a lot of my time. Well, not a lot of my time, but every day I take our 2-year-old out for a walk so she can exercise, and we've had to. In that it has got better as the days have gone on, but certainly in the first week and a half of what was laughably called a lockdown, I assume the lock is implied. We had to step out onto the road 25, 30 times maybe to avoid people, and no particular demographic, white, black, male, female, old, young, some oblivious, some pleased with what was happening. There's one guy around here, and maybe I'm misreading the situation. I try and have understanding of the best of times, but there's some guy around here who wears a Misfits t-shirt, and at the end of this episode, I'm at the very least going to have some very serious words with his fucking face. So,
some little chin music, perhaps.
No, listen. I'm like it's weird with punching and all that stuff. It's easy to joke about it, but I'm a person where if you bring that kind of stuff into my life, like you're out of my life. It's the kind of thing you can joke about, but when you've had to, when at a time of a pandemic when people we actually know are dying, and somebody thinks it's fucking funny that me and my 2-year-old have to move into a garden to avoid him.
Not funny.
No, it's not funny, and at the very least, I'm going to explain to him that any joke I have to explain isn't funny before Anyway, that's the only time the enjoyment he seemed to be garnering from the experience was something else for me, really. You kind of expect ignorance or obliviousness from the general population, but there are other levels of it, like a maliciousness, and you can almost guarantee that they're the people who will be the first to complain about other people's behaviour if one of their relatives succumbs to it or whatever. But anyway, let's try and be more. We're all in this, so let's try and be more positive. He says entirely to himself.
Well, yeah, and it's interesting that thoughtlessness. It goes, it is not limited to any credo, social class, race, or intelligence level. It does seem to be something. It's worth noting, and one of the only good things, of course, there are no good things about this global pandemic, is literally everyone's in the same situation, and to not have that level of empathy towards treating that seriously personally makes me even more egregiously angry at the average human being than I am regularly, which is impressive because I'm at a resting state usually fairly angry.
You've got resting misanthrope face.
Yes, absolutely. I'm the affable misanthrope though, so it works out well. Like I mask it well.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, I mean, the thing is, there are people who don't value their lives,
right?
And as a result, I mean, I've even come out of the house to go for late night runs. I mean, Julia's convinced that I only go for late night runs to meet men and women in parks and have bizarre sex, behind small European cars.
As one does. Yes.
It's not true. It's not true. I just like to run, believe it or not. It's something I really enjoy. But on late night runs, I've seen many cars being broken into because I run late at night. None, I promise, by myself. I don't have the organisational skills, and anyway, I can't drive. I would just be opening a car rather than stealing it. But I've seen, I've seen some stuff in my late night running. But I have seen 3-4 people trying to steal cars in the last 2 weeks openly on the streets. So all I'm saying is there's a certain part of society who lockdown those words don't register really, because they live at the edge of society, and in a sense you've got more understanding for those people. It's maybe the people who are slightly older who are more vulnerable to the virus.
The vulnerable population.
Their obliviousness is at times, I don't know. You couldn't write these characters. The old woman who wanders into the middle of the park walking a dog, and you just want to scream, "Go home!"
Yeah, it seems as if half the people you see are mid-grade Stephen King characters in Chapter 2.
Yes, and you know what? I've really enjoyed some Stephen King. I really enjoyed Mr. Mercedes. I read that recently. It's really good because it's less of I don't know, supernatural kind of element to it. But there is and he is actually fantastic at characters, but there is sometimes in his stories that moment where the character I'm off to do something stupid, so there's a book. And you go, oh no, don't go and see Chris the bad guy. Yeah.
It won't end well. I can only imagine.
I went to see Chris the bad guy, and he didn't check if his gun was loaded. Oh no! I wonder what's going to happen. Oh, no.
I feel like everyone in Maine is constantly wandering off to an impending death by misadventure.
They are, and writing a lot of books.
It's. I have not spent that much time in Maine, but I can only imagine the death count being what it is, that everyone's just constantly wandering off somewhere, towards a fog or a dark room or something along those lines.
It's horrible. It's horrible of me to be critical, though, because Stephen King's brought a lot more joy, albeit by terrifying people, into the world than I have. So, all and it's weird because sometimes you just got to recognize in yourself that you don't know anything. I really enjoyed. I can't even remember what book it was. What Stephen King book. I really enjoyed it, and I said to somebody, "But I just don't buy a lot of the female characters." This person happened to be female. She said, "I think Stephen King writes fantastic female characters," and I'm like, "Well, you got more horses in that race." So,
I was going to say you speak from a position of authority, and I will trust your judgment.
Yeah, well, maybe I did say that at the time. What can I say? I spend all day with a toddler. I'm always looking for interesting ways to present language to her.
So, and that's believe it or not, I believe that was the first question that we had, which was how was your shopping trip?
Yes.
I was trying to place it in my personal timeline when last time we were on. It's been a couple years, and I cannot remember for the life of me if You Are the Ambulance came out before or after that, and I want to say it came out after that.
I can't remember if the last time we spoke was just before or just after you were moving.
Yeah, I don't.
It was around that time. I mean, you have to excuse me. I don't keep a Conan diary, but there was definitely some moving going on or being recovered from. But yeah, I'm awful. I talk so much now. It's horrendous.
Well, I'm. Let's operate under the auspices of that. You Are the Ambulance is the most recent Christian fitness record, and we did not in fact get the chance to talk about that.
Let's go with that. Yeah, let's go with that.
So that's number 6, right? There's six of these records. They're all available on Bandcamp. They're not available on other services. Is that by choice or by lethargy?
It's partly because I think Bandcamp's really great, even if I do find the Bandcamp Weekly a little bit confusing. But Bandcamp I just don't see a problem with it. No. But no problem with, and it's a weird thing, isn't it? Because some people seem to resent people making a buck. I've got no problems with somebody making a good, honest buck, and other people, doing the same thing as well. I think it's fantastic. I don't really. I'm sure there are issues with it. that I'm just not aware of yet, because nothing is perfect. But
haven't found
so far it's it's fantastic. I had a couple of little technical issues when we set up a label page rather than just an artist page, which did they annoy me? No, it was more of an irk than a fucking annoy, I think. I just got a bit pissed off for about 4 hours, but and they did describe slap bass hunks as having slap bass on it, which proves that nobody actually listened to it before writing the review. There's always those. It's like when a big fan, in inverted commas, writes a review of a show and quotes 3 songs you didn't play.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, that's
and then you're like, well, just this, and then the good review. I think there was an NME review which said we opened a Future of the Left show with to hell good intentions, and I mean, it just it didn't happen, frankly, and
it's almost fan fiction at that point, right?
Well, no, it's almost, I don't really care. I was told to write a positive review of this band, and I can't just say I got drunk and I stayed in.
Yeah,
it's a better review than a band I don't care about played some songs. It was loud. People liked it. The singer said something funny. Who cares?
Yeah, we don't need speculative hypothesis about
what
did or did not happen.
Yeah, just tell us about your lasagna.
That would at least be an honest review.
Yeah, try a bit of like Worcestershire sauce on it. That's the kind of content I want in my music magazines. And to anybody of your listeners who don't know what a music magazine was, think of
well, there used to be this thing called print media. Start there.
There's definitely a band in Portland called Print Media, isn't there?
More than likely.
Yeah,
it's entirely probable.
Yeah. They'll do all their releases online, though, ironically, because they're called Print Media.
Oh yes, of course, because there would have to be the irony involved. Yeah. Bandcamp's very artist friendly. It's a nice platform. I favor it myself.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I know you do. You're a vocal proponent of Bandcamp. You have been for longer than I've been on it. So, it's great. Seems nice. I've always got to try and find something negative in it, but I haven't. I've searched and I haven't found anything yet. So, fucking-tastic. Let's have a balloon party.
So, since civilizations have risen and fell since last we spoke, I can't remember if we mentioned the fact that Nuance the Musical didn't have any guitars on it, right? It was.
There's a couple of songs have
very
some guitars
sparse.
on them.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of the opener has some guitars on, and there's a couple of songs, but it was very like stringy and stuff, and it was loads of fun. A total headfuck. Part of it was that we had a very young kid, and playing guitars in the house just wasn't
not an option. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't an option in the sense that it was louder, and it disturbed her, because kids do this really inconvenient thing called sleeping. Although, frankly, it's sometimes more convenient when they're being awake. Right. It's been tough to make music for that particular reason over the last few years. It's probably, apart from continual exhaustion, really the only bad thing about having a kid, I think. It just, I mean, by virtue of us living in London, we don't really have, I mean, people don't have spare rooms in London.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that? So my office is the living room, which is directly under where Ella lives. So there's not it's a tough one. So I have to try and fit in music in the 10 hours she's in nursery a week. But obviously she's not going to nursery at the minute, because I don't know if you heard, but there's a global pandemic.
I heard something about that. Yeah.
So all of that stuff's going on. So you know what? That's all a shame, but we were talking about this the other day, just as a band, and remembering especially what it's like when bands are when you're young and in a band, and all the bands and people are invited to take this in any way, like Get Anywhere. And by Get Anywhere, I mean go on some cool tours or whatever, release records. And this is more relevant to the 2000s, but I think it still stands up today. They were the bands or the individuals who sacrificed things to do it. They sacrificed girlfriends' birthdays.
Yes, and that's
sometimes that's a very easy thing to do, depending on the girlfriend.
Right. It depends on the situation, depends on the relationship, depends on the income demographic.
But I mean, I remember a friend of mine who was in a really good band telling me he was going on holiday with his girlfriend to, I can't remember where it was. I don't think it was the Cayman Islands. It wasn't that upmarket, but they were going somewhere.
Was he going to go launder some money?
They were, yeah. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy, honestly.
Going to go pop off on holiday, launder a few million, as one does.
Hey, listen, the Russian mob don't take no for an answer.
I've seen Ozark.
But the second he's telling you that, then you're like, well, you're not taking your band's not. You're not going to go anywhere because you're not going to have enough holiday from your job to go on tour.
Yeah, you're not going to have time away to do the other absurd thing that one does in bands, which is to go on tour.
Absolutely, and don't get me wrong, that doesn't stop somebody from being in a great band or being a great musician. You're just not going to be able to take it beyond your hometown. And
some people are fine with that.
That's the thing. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with that, but by definition, you're not going to be heard by as many people, and you're not going to go out and have a really good time as well, because playing rock music is in and of itself loads of fun, and if you're always playing the same 2 or 3 venues to the same 37 or 39 people, then you're not going to. It's all about those. Rock music is the intersection between the band, the artist, if you want to be all French about it, and the audience. That's what it is. It's about those moments. If you want to do those things, like I used to have to be really tactical. I'd use all of my days vacation for shows, and we tend to get more in British jobs than in America. Usually we'd start on like 22 days a year or something. Whereas for you guys, it's usually just 2 weeks or something, isn't it? It's not
2 weeks if you're lucky, and it's again, that's if you're coming from a privileged enough position to be able to even have some kind of time off. Whereas here, it's more, we'll give you 5 minutes and we'll unshackle the irons for you during that moment in time, and after the 5 minutes is up, you're back to the grind.
Don't fuck with me. You love actual irons. You love this.
Well, it is. Yeah, because people complain about it's so terrible being locked in. It's like, well, you have the internet and Netflix and the whole repository of human knowledge from the history of time. So it's not quite like prison, is it?
It's not. It's not like prison. It reminds me of something like my gran would say when. She'd, hurt her finger or accidentally bite her own lip or something, when she was eating. We've all done. She'd go, "Oh, there's nothing worse than a sore lip," she'd say. And you'd go,
the Armenians would disagree.
You go, yeah. See what you mean in the moment. She's talking about I think she means there's nothing more slightly annoying than, or there's nothing more inconvenient. I think for some people, for people who just live in a flat, we are lucky enough, again for London, largely because my wife has a decent job, to have a backyard, which is probably, I don't even know how to measure things, 10 feet by 12 feet or something, right? So it's a small backyard, but I can go in there with water pistols and get shot to pieces by my daughter. It's big enough to do that. It's not big enough to do much else. I could swing a cat there, but the cat is going to get concussed.
The cat may have some words about that.
Yeah. So if I could, I'm trying to work out my arm. Yeah, I would definitely be hitting the cat off walls. So, and Genghis, I apologize. I'm just speaking with my cat. I didn't mean to imply any violent act to you. It's not like you're wearing a Misfits t-shirt, right? So it is difficult, and sometimes you've got to think that guy sat on that bench reading a book in the sunshine doesn't count as exercise, but you've got to hope that really he doesn't have normally access to that outside space. Having said that, the Daft Punk should still be indoors, reading that book. It's not about, again, this is a moment where you have to sacrifice, for most people, the people who can, sacrifice those things, and, try and get through with as few people as possible dying. It's so weird to have to explain that kind of thing to people, though.
Right.
So there we are.
So your 6th record is...
Don't talk about music, blah, blah.
No.
How do you make music? You sit in a room, either by yourself or with other people. You have, I have 3/4 of a beer. I mess on, and that's just what comes out. What does it mean? Fucking who knows? It's all a love letter to. I was about to say Idi Amin, but that would have been very dark. It's not a love letter to Idi Amin. It's just mucking on. That's album 6. Album 5 was really mucking on, and albums 3 and 4 were probably the most coherent. So there you are. I'm not saying they were better. I'm saying they were the most coherent and definitely the easiest to just let go and enjoy.
Oh, some of the most fantastic experiences in life are incoherent. Yeah, I mean,
absolutely they are, and they absolutely should be. You just got to hope that nobody loses an eye.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's fascinating to me to see that there is this flashpoint, other than 90% of the people that have been mentioned in this discussion so far, of people being sort of unified, though, and in the same boat, having the same experience, which is not something that happens very often, at least certainly not on a worldwide level, and assuredly not in these United States of America over here. And it's there's, again, nothing comforting about it. It's in fact would be an antonym of comforting, to be discomforting. But this solidarity is the wrong word, but the shared misery and sort of anxiety that is happening here is somewhat interesting, because I can't think of another time in my life that's happened, especially because everyone gets their own tailored individual experience thanks to social media and chosen circles, confirmation bias bubbles, what have you. It's fascinating to me that, and again, it took different things for people to take it seriously. Like for some folks, it was when sports was canceled. That's when, like, oh, this is serious business. For Wisconsin, it was when the bars were closed. Everyone paid attention when the bars were closed, and that's a couple of Wisconsin jokes that are just out there on the table for anyone to pick up. The punchline is that everyone here is drunk, by the way.
Right. You know what? It's not just Wisconsin.
It's not just Wisconsin, but there is more bars per capita than anywhere in the United States, and it is kind of funny. It's not funny at all, of course, to the people that have lost revenue and don't know how they're going to pay their bills, or are looking down the barrel of a gun towards an uncertain future. All that said, it is fascinating that everyone's more or less in the same boat right now, except for, of course, the deniers that are going to get people killed, which... There's that.
Well, this is the thing. All of the conversations, all of the advice, all of the suggestions aren't really for us, are they?
Nope.
They're for a very small audience. It's like arguments about most articles about racism, homophobia, and sexism don't get read by the people who really need to be reading them.
Right.
They get it's that advice, asking people to use their common sense, it assumes common sense. So it's a problem, and all it takes is for that 1 in 100 person to be. Anyway, I've gone through, living in London, I've gone through so much proper social anxiety for the first time in my life. I mean, obviously, sometimes I've walked into a place and haven't wanted to be there, if it was very laddie kind of place, and I think I want to get away from you wankers. But having actual social anxiety has been very weird for the last few weeks. Actually, actively stay away from me is not a thought that you have on a daily basis, and it's been, I don't know, it's worrying and interesting just how my daughter will end up reacting to all that stuff, because I'm actively having to get her to stay away from people which is a hard thing to explain to someone who isn't even 3 without causing long-term damage to her. So I've been trying to use positive reinforcement. And trying to turn it into a game. It's not. Hey, you stay away from that person. It's, hey, you didn't go near that person. Great.
Yeah, and
which sounds ridiculous, but that makes it seems to make a big difference so far. He says before, honestly, I am at times ready to drown myself in the sink. So it's like I say, interesting is something I'm choosing to find it, so I don't find it maddening.
Yeah, may you live in interesting times, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he is calling it the Chinese virus, so why not? Why not take their apocryphal sayings as well?
And it's you bring up an interesting point about, raising a child in these times too. You don't want that to be, one would hope that one would not have to be socially distancing their entire life. Again, right now it kind of seems like we're in sort of a mid-grade disaster movie, but not one of the good ones with a high budget. One of the ones where it's on maybe one of the lesser movie channels late at night or something along those lines.
Yeah, we need a Bobby from Dallas ending, don't we?
Yes, but one would hope that. And again, I have no idea because I'm not, in fact, a child, which I'm sure you're aware of. But the effect on children is going to be fascinating because this is for many, it's going to be a part of their childhood. It's going to be a formative experience.
It will. It's just a question of hopefully making it a part of their childhood that they vaguely remember, as opposed to a part of their childhood which defines them as children. And then
definitional, yeah.
So, but there we go. I mean, in the 80s, I had to grow up under the shadow of tie-dye clothes, LA Gear trainers. They traumatized me in my own way. So maybe you could say a global pandemic is in some ways not as bad. Well, maybe we can't say that. Yeah, but we tried.
There are different.
We tried to put a positive spin.
There are different stages of trauma, for sure.
Yeah, there are. As undoubtedly traumatizing as tie-dye was to an entire generation. But yeah, so yeah. I mean, children are going to be a lot of fun. And maybe there'll be a lot of art about this in 18 years, because any art actually made about this now will probably be the worst things ever thinked.
Yeah, I don't want to hear anybody's concept record about the quarantine, and I can envision the album art already.
Guys, in a way, we were already locked down in our hearts, and it took an actual lockdown to make us see how to find the freedom in ourselves. There'll be that notion will run through popular culture.
Turns out that the cure for the coronavirus was in our hearts the entire time.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, yeah. It would. I was actually writing. I'm still writing a novel which was set during a flu pandemic. Mm-hmm. Which originated in Morocco in my story, but it's not about a pandemic. It's just a background. It's more of a plot device to get things moving as opposed to what the story is about.
Right.
But I don't know whether to change it or not, because if I change it, I'm scared of accidentally summoning something else. Because it was like that. It was between that or either a nuclear conflagration over Saudi Arabia between the US and Russia. That was the other option for it. But now I'm thinking I'd just go with the flu pandemic because I've already done the damage, So,
yeah, I mean, wasn't there a Twilight Zone or something where there was the event would come to pass that was written down in the book or something along those lines?
I mean, if there's not, there fucking should have been, because that's an obvious one. It's like people tweeting at this moment in time, we're getting letters from our government, and I was waiting for the first. I got a letter from the government the other day tweets, and I wasn't disappointed that
and expectations solidly met.
Yeah, you just know sometimes with a joke sometimes with a joke, if it occurs to you straight away, it's because it's not a good joke.
Yeah.
It's because it's an obvious joke. There was a TV presenter in Britain who presented a show called Blockbusters called Bob Holness, and the format of the show was just, kids, you suddenly got a board and you got to get across the board to win, and there were different letters for answers. So you would say, the contestant would say, I'll have a D, please, Bob, and the D would come up and he would ask a question, the answer of which began with D, right? And when he died, when I heard he died, I thought you think of a joke right away, because you're a person. But then you're like, it's not in good taste.
Yeah.
And it's not in good taste. And it's obvious because it occurred to me straight away, And every unoriginal cunt in the world tweeted, I'll have an RIP, please, Bob.
Yeah.
Who knew it? Like straight away. I mean, instantly there were 15,000 of those tweets from really contented people. Some of whom I'm sure are lovely and were just earning their Twitter wings at the time. Yeah. But you could just
dislocating a shoulder, patting themselves on the back over their rapier-like wit.
Yeah, but you could. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't their fault as individuals. Maybe that was such an inevitable joke that it had to subsume all class and taste. I don't know.
Well, as far as the book goes, whether or not it's the Twilight Zone, I'm assuming it's Twilight Zone. Let's just credit the Twilight Zone with it, thing where you're bringing it to pass. But at least you don't have like a Netflix series called Global Pandemic or something. You know what I mean? I can't imagine somebody who worked for years and years and then be like, we're not going to run this now. This is
Global Pandemic Q1 to 2 2020. Oh my God.
But we're going to have 6 seasons in a movie. No.
Yeah, because people at first kept showing, there was this psychic who predicted this, but she'd also predicted that everyone would have green hands by 2011, and
of course, clearly
that yogurt could cure Piers Morgan.
One can only hope.
He's actually been as far as I'm aware, because there's a lot of people who, being annoyed by Piers Morgan, they could find themselves less annoyed by Piers Morgan by not paying any attention to Piers Morgan. That would be a way which could solve it. Because it's not like he's your president or whatever. He is just a guy on the TV, and you can not watch him or engage with him in any kind of social capacity. But as far as I'm aware, he's been making more sense than usual recently. I think there's probably the threat of dying changes some people or gets some people up to the barricades, isn't it? Or maybe deep down, even though he tries not to have it, maybe deep down just a little bit of human compassion and common decency, although that's probably just fantasy.
This is so first of all, yes, that would be an Occam's razor style solution for Piers Morgan, but this is where I unfortunately have to point out that unfortunately the American president is in fact somebody that was on the television as well. And
yeah, he was. Yeah,
it's as someone that very frequently would, I took no end of pleasure in ignoring said person whose name I will not mention because I'm sure his microphallus gets erect upon every mention. I really find it difficult dealing with the news, as do many people these days. Not the least of which is it's one thing to be out of your depth, which he clearly is, and everybody knows that. That's not some great epiphany, but it's quite another to be actively giving out damaging information, and to have your own experts immediately come on afterwards and without outright saying, yeah, everything he said was not true, saying the same thing afterwards. And it's not like you guys have it much better with Mr. Boris Johnson, of course, but it's hard. And I say that as the last few years have all been very hard, not just for the US, but for the entire world. And I always felt like I was very populist in my thinking that, oh, well, everyone should be able to be president. It shouldn't be any qualifications. That's against what the framers of the country wanted. I was like, maybe the framers of the country were wrong about that, though. Because this guy is going to get people killed.
It's not a great advert for democracy, is it?
No.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, I know the word democracy itself is heavily caveated when you're talking about the electoral college as opposed to maybe the popular vote, or maybe it isn't. I mean, there were reasons behind the institution of the electoral college form of voting, weren't there? There was an idea behind it. I can't say I agree with it, but I at least understand the original thinking. But no, it's just it's the last few years at least have been exhausting. That's what they on that level. And I'm perfectly aware that for most people in the world, it's like when the Normans invaded England in 1066. To most of the peasants in the feudal system, it didn't really matter who the masters were. They just existed in the feudal system in the same way they were. Somebody's accent didn't. So all I'm saying is, for most of the world, I think, apart from maybe with the exception of how any environmental advances were instantly destroyed, most of the world wouldn't even notice a difference for Donald Trump or Boris Johnson being in power. But certainly in the West, it's just I don't know. I think it's knocked the stuffing out of everybody. I think is the way I'd look at it, and certainly in terms of, and it shattered that last lie for me. The last lie of growing up and trusting people. The last lie that the world was run by adults and they knew what they were doing. How come I knew what to do about this pandemic three or 4 weeks before my government started doing that?
Yeah.
How that can't be the case. Like that's loot. And I'm no doomsday prepper or whatever. I saw a program on those guys once, and the hats.
The hats alone.
The hats alone. I mean,
the rest of the content as well, but really the hats.
Yeah, you'd want to live to trade those with the mutants. But just it's incredible. It's just incredible, but like I was saying earlier, not a great advert for democracy, because if Trump gets back in, whether it's through the electoral college or being able to throw a boomerang a really fucking long way, then maybe you deserve him, and maybe we deserve, maybe I don't mean you in
the pejorative you. Yes, I understand.
Yeah, but when people, there's only so much ignorance you can allow. And it's so weird for me, because maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but whenever I've talked to people who are on the other side of that divide, and again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but a lot of it is based around abortion. That
is one of the touch point issues.
Yeah,
sure.
But it seems to underlie nearly everything.
Well, but what's fascinating about that, what a lot of people don't understand, is it isn't as much as they want to ban all abortions as they want the fight to ban abortion to be a thing. Because what they do is they consider those folks the rubes, they get their money, and then what they do is they talk a big game about actually doing it, but they don't actually ever take the action. What they do is they use it towards their own purposes to enrich themselves, their friends, and their donors. And it's been consistent, but of course, because there's not a modicum of critical thinking anywhere within politics, including and especially with cable news, that story rarely gets told. And it is interesting because it's like we're in a really hacky political drama or a really hacky black comedy, and it's really hard to tell day to day which is which.
It's just, I mean, just even objectively, like my mother doesn't really engage with politics, but she'll look at, you know, a month ago, the potential presidential candidates, Donald Trump, who's soon 74, is that right?
Yes.
Soon 74. And Biden and Sanders, one is 77 and one is 78, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is correct. That is correct.
We're talking on the phone and she goes, don't they have any other people in America?
Well, there's actually a fantastic reason for that. And by fantastic, I mean a fantastic story, not fantastic that that's the situation we're in. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that there was a distinct program put in place to minimize and marginalize left voices within our generation. That was incredibly effective. Part of that was due to the same folks that brought Bill Clinton into power. Part of it actually was due to the fact that people that just got knocked out of power with Ronald Reagan and lost the House and basically never recovered from that. So there's an entire generation of leftists that it's not that they don't exist. They're just nowhere near to the seats of power. So you have this awesome new generation of folks, your Rashida Tlaibs, your Ilhan Omars, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that are just now getting into politics and building power bases and doing good work. And then you have someone like Bernie Sanders that's been in it from the beginning and right since the beginning, on the right side of every issue since the beginning, and was looked at as a kook for years and years.
Young man. Nobody is on the right side of every issue.
Well, but by right side I mean like
I'm an admirer of Mr. Sanders, but no, unless they have witch-like skills, people are going to be wrong on some issues, particularly foreign policy entanglements.
Fair enough.
It always, you know. Sorry, I'm being pedantic, but there's a certain language which is sometimes used about politicians,
I understand.
Which gives them these mystical abilities, and even if somebody isn't in their heart a compassionate person, that can be fully recognised without turning them into He-Man the diplomat.
Well, I'm not trying to be prone to hyperbole for this. I'm actually trying to get past this as quickly as possible, so I can give them the background.
I'm enjoying. You know me. I love a good addendum.
Yeah, and the cultural shorthand is that in issues of civil rights, whether it was a woman's right to choose, all of these things that were these culture war issues that all were fought and won, he was on the right side of all of that. He's always been on the side of justice. Before it was cool, absolutely. He was the indie rock Pete of the political movement, if you will. And until 2015, the idea that a Bernie Sanders could ever run for president in America was completely, within my lifetime, not even a possibility.
Yeah,
and the fact that he did, and then got as far as he did the first time, and then got even further the second time, is quite an accomplishment. But it's quite an accomplishment in the way that, you can say getting a bronze medal in hurling is quite the accomplishment. No one really cares, unless you're a fellow hurler.
Well, the thing is, the people who do care really care, don't they?
And that's the same thing with Bernie Sanders.
They care up to the sky and back down again. But the problem with politics is that I'm not fully involved in politics. I read about politics. I have a couple of friends who are political journalists. I've talked about it with them, but I mean, on one level, politics is the art of being popular, and I don't know if you've noticed the band I'm in, but that's something I don't know a fucking lot about, despite trying to be popular.
Right.
So you certainly don't want to lecture people on that kind of thing, but. It turns out most of the people in the world aren't like, or certainly in our respective countries, aren't like our social circles, it turns out. Because my social circle would have voted 94% for Jeremy Corbyn, who, frankly, is a much more flawed candidate than Bernie Sanders, apart from maybe in age, for reasons that I can't be asked to go into.
No, and it's not...
It's a very long and divisive conversation that I'd rather not go into. I still voted for the cunt, but, there we are. But 98%... I think literally 98% of, say, my Facebook friends who are American would be voting for Bernie Sanders given the chance, or maybe Elizabeth Warren. Personally speaking, Elizabeth Warren seemed like a statesman to me. I know people have some issues with certain things she said or whatever, but I mean that's the nature of politics, isn't it? It's the nature of compromise. But
well, yes and no. Elizabeth Warren is a regulator at heart, and that's and the problem is Elizabeth Warren staked her entire campaign upon the idea that what the American people really want were detailed, nuanced plans. And that is not true. And
again, that's the thing. That's what you want, right?
Yeah.
That's that's what I want. But it's not what the American people want. Is a story which speaks to them.
So, and ultimately, to answer what I believe was your mother's question about, aren't there any young ones? The idea there is that you have folks like Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders, and then you also have people at the far end, on the younger end, like your Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who literally is too young to run for president. There's almost no stipulation at all other than you must be born in the United States of America and you must be 35 years old, and she is not old enough.
Well, it's another similarity with the Roman Republic. It's
right.
it's another before you could go to certain offices, you had to be particular ages. So, and it's another parallel. So we're just waiting for you to be overrun by barbarians. We just need to find out which barbarians they are. I think one of the final death knells of the American Republic will be the first president who wasn't born in America. There'll be some kind of constitutional change. It'll really rub it in for the racists. It'll be someone born in Costa Rica or something,
Well, they want to do that for Arnold Schwarzenegger, which is a clear artifact of another time, that at one point, A, that guy was in politics, B, that guy had a political future.
Do you remember when that guy was really right-wing as well?
Yes, well, that's the thing, is everyone tries to give him credit, like, oh, well, he wouldn't be so bad, he'd be pretty progressive. I'm like, no, he was not.
But I mean, in terms of, because he is now relatively progressive.
Sure, but when he was governor of California, he was not. He governed as a hard right conservative surrounded by a bunch of Pete Wilson's men. And the fact that that's down the memory hole, I suppose that shouldn't surprise me, but it definitely disappoints me.
But it's true, isn't it? The whole world looks back nostalgically on the liberal reforming tendencies of George W. Bush.
Yes, suddenly George W. Bush is great. But
remember him with his cuddly little face?
Oh, do you remember when he choked on a pretzel? How adorable.
Yeah. It's nice, isn't he? But there's something reassuring about his face. It says it's leather, but it's leather you can trust.
So ultimately, what I can only assume was a tossed-off comment. I am answering in the fact that the American left was hollowed out generationally, and that was not by mistake; it was by design. And it's only just now begun to recover. And the guiding light and the light at the end of the tunnel, I suppose you would say, that hopefully is not a train, is the fact that the new crop of young progressives are much savvier. And by savvier, I mean both media savvy and just political savvy as well. And there is quite a bit of hope for the future. The problem being, the future is the future and the present is the present. And unfortunately, we're stuck with the ox we got, not the ox we want.
Well, I hope so. I really hope so. And good luck to everybody, because I know sincerely you're one of those people who actually puts your time and effort where your mouth is, and you actually go out and you do stuff.
I certainly try.
You go on the streets, yeah, but so many people are armed with opinions, but no actual,
right.
but no actual activity. And that's not to say that their opinion doesn't have any value, but it does have less value. And so, well done on being you.
Oh, thank you. And I feel like an opinion without action when it comes time to politics is like a van without gas in the tank. So there you go.
Sure. Yeah. I will say, though, that American politics, by its very nature, by the way it's marketed, the way it's presented, is definitely more exciting than British politics. I think if there's one thing that the last few years has done, it's helped to it's helped to genuinely, well, it's not just me who fucking thinks this. I'm not I'm not bringing the news here, but people are more involved in it and see its politics' relation to everyday life, as opposed to just mumbling in a weird old building.
Yeah, perhaps, and it is interesting that what
was
I will
I
say.
Talking about politics there?
Yeah.
Was I talking about politics there, or was I talking about Smashing Pumpkins live album?
Either one, mumbling in a building would certainly work. I will say that your elections are done quickly, and I appreciate that, rather than over the course of what seems like decades over here.
It's ridiculous. It's like fucking Lost, your elections, aren't they? Fucking hell.
Yeah, it's like we're in season 5.
Season 8 of that old cunt's face. You're like, my God, like, go on, ask him. Just write down what you think about the following things. Here, there we are now. It's and just a series of gotchas when really you've just got. And I mean, I don't understand it anyway. What is a swing voter? What are you? I can't decide between. What do you mean you can't? What part of you can't decide between a crushing lack of empathy and wanting people not to die? I just don't know what a swing voter is. It's just so weird to me.
Well, this candidate wants to raise my taxes slightly to provide more social services, while this one actively wants me dead. I just can't decide. Boy.
Yeah. And you know what? This is all a thorough illustration of why Future of the Left and McCluskey only ever play stadium-sized shows.
So you are the ambulance.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it was good, this one, because I came up with the title Nuance the Musical, but with both This Taco Is Not Correct and Slap Bass Hunks, there's a guy called Michael Bukowski who runs a thing called Aesthetic Apparatus, which is in Minneapolis, and he's designed all the Christian fitness covers because they've kind of got like, well, not a theme to them, but they've got a look to them.
A distinct look, yeah.
Yeah, a distinct look. He's fantastic. He's done the cover of 2 Future of the Left records as well, and we met him because he did some gig posters. I can't remember. I think it was for a show in 7th Street Entry, if you've ever been there.
Yeah, I've been there. I've played there. It's
yeah. Great venue, only one bathroom. Sort it out, guys. Come on.
Yeah, it's quite the design flaw, but we
it
don't
is
speak
quite
of
the
it.
design, especially for the older audiences these days.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be horrendous. They're going to need to bleach the bar every night. He with This Taco Is Not Correct, which again sounds like an archetypal stupid album title I'd have.
It was the text, the placement text. It was the original text.
Yeah, it was
in
just
there,
a placement text, and the same happened with the 4th record as well. I said I want to see a giant bee crawling up a pyramid, and he did something like that, and just underneath wrote Slap Bass Hunks, and you're like, well, there we are now. I've got to write a song called that now. Thank you. But it's those things are like the song title Slap Bass Hunks. Later so praised by Bandcamp Weekly.
Yes, for its innovative use of slap bass. Yes, I remember.
Because of its use of slap bass, yeah. Yeah.
Slap bass aficionados rejoice.
I had a friend, and I use that term precisely. He's still something of a friend, but he has so many guilty pleasures. It's just he just needs to admit he likes shit music.
At a certain point, yeah.
Yeah, I've got to. You're like, you only seem to have guilty pleasures. There's no. You do know you can just like things. It's just all right to just like it. But he always used to say to me whenever my eyes would. I'm not a big fan of rolling your eyes. It's a horrendous habit. But the Red Hot Chili Peppers can always bring it out of me.
It's one of their easy skills.
There's always an exception for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and whenever the Red Hot Chili Peppers would come on, and I'd visibly be affected. He'd always go, "Do you know that? Do you know that's Gang of Four, a Flea's favorite band?" And you'd say, "I know that, and the reason I know that is you've told me that every single time we've ever heard the Red Hot Chili Peppers." Which is, going around the world from the age of 18, you hear the Red Hot Chili Peppers a lot. I mean, that song Californication, I've heard that song maybe 190 times, maybe. And believe me, I own precisely no Red Hot Chili Peppers albums.
Well, you don't need to, because unfortunately you'll hear them incidentally at like the Butchers or like at the Gap or something along those lines.
It's like, I grew up. Both my parents grew up in the '60s. I know every Beatles song, and I've never once chosen to put a Beatles song on. Right. I mean, obviously they're a far superior band, the Beatles, and their use of slap bass was quite the revelation.
Yeah, it's far more tasteful.
But I've never once had to put a Beatles song on. They're all stored in my Apple Watch 6 brain.
Along with the unrequested U2 record, I'm certain.
Oh yeah, that was that never turned up on my phone.
Oh, what a tragedy!
Yeah, no, I feel let down. I was thinking of emailing Bono Vox and asking where my record was. What was it? What was the record called?
It had some very precious title. I can't remember. But I do remember specifically one of the songs that they had on there. It had some reference to Joey Ramone or something along those lines. It just was incredibly, like, first draft song title kind of mindset, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean,
so I looked at. Oh, first of all,
maybe they go into rehearsals and say, right, we need to write songs about the rainforest. The second song is going to be about. What's that going to be about? The Troubles in Ireland are over to all intents and purposes. So we have.
It's the miracle parentheses of Joey Ramone is the name of that song. In parentheses.
Oh, right, okay.
And
wasn't he a proper right-wing crackpot by the end as well?
No, you're thinking of the guitar player Johnny Ramone. Joey was actually.
They all look the same to me, the Ramones.
the record itself is called "Songs of Innocence," which
right.
That's
Songs of Innocence. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. That's what you need for mainstream success, though, isn't it? You need something which literally can mean anything to anybody.
Sounds like wallpaper. Sounds like inoffensive wallpaper.
to the point that it means nothing at all.
Yeah.
Oh, Songs of Innocence. Oh, I like songs.
Yeah, I like innocence. It's great.
I was innocent once before the thing with the goat. Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. But this, you've got to admire it. You've got to admire it, whatever it is. Our friend Mitch, who texts for us, he insists that when he saw U2 in the late 70s or early 80s or whenever the fuck it was, I don't know. He insists that they were a great live band then, and I'm going to take his word for it, but he was taking a lot of speed back then, so I can't. This is our friend Mitch, when I messaged him the other day asking him how he was doing and was he isolating, he told me he was isolating up a fucking scaffold. So, that's how he's going.
That's almost like they have that contest for the world's saddest short story. That would be a pretty decent candidate.
No, he's not sad when he says that.
Oh, okay. Well,
no, he's not. I've never seen this man sad. He's incapable of being sad. The only thing which actually makes him sad is when I order low alcohol or no alcohol equivalents when we're out. That's the only thing which makes him melancholy. So I get drunk just for him some days.
As a good friend will. A couple things. First of all, on that YouTube record, I love the idea that they were shocked and horrified that people were not receptive to their gift, that they felt that they were bestowing as a pantheon of gods might upon some subjects, as raining down their gift from the heavens. And that just tells you everything you need to know, I think, about U2. Secondly, I will agree with your friend that there are some early U2 where at least the edges of guitar, rather than sounding like the demo area of the delay pedal aisle and Guitar Center, actually has some quite good Andy Gill Gang of Four style action going on. So I could see that.
Have you ever seen the Bill Bailey, the British comedian Bill Bailey does a thing about the Edge playing without effects?
Just one note.
It's on YouTube. If you just look up Bill Bailey and the Edge or U2, it's not very long. It's really funny. That'll make anybody laugh.
So there's been a lot that's happened since last we have talked music-wise with you as well, including the fact that I believe last time you were kind of spooling up to do a couple McCluskey one-off benefits. Mm-hmm. Can you explain how that came to pass, came to be more of a regular thing, how you had the guy from St. Pierre Snake Invasion involved, and also the Poundland Shellac thing?
Well, the Poundland Shellac thing kind of started it off because a journalist over here referred to McCluskey as Poundland Shellac. I mean, there is quite a considerable interview online which explains all of that, but basically my main issue with that is it's just an ignorant thing to say, because McCluskey was, especially Do Dallas, which is the best known of those three records, it's not really informed by Shellac or anything at all. Future of the Left is, and a little bit of McCluskey's third record, perhaps. But it's not
more Pixies to me. I mean,
well, the thing is, it's more just rock and roll. Mm-hmm. We started off loving stuff like the Pixies, but we were just naturally a harder, more rock and roll band than that. We were, grew up listening to crap glam when I was a little kid, and then it was hard rock like AC/DC or whatever. So there was more of that. It was just faster and a bit less subtle than the Pixies as well. It was full on. It was just basic rock music. But anyway, that wasn't an issue. But we'd been offered to do a show, this festival called Portals, which is mostly kind of a post-rocky kind of thing. And we were offered that as Future of the Left, but we ended up not being able to do it for a reason somebody wasn't available, so we couldn't do it. And so, but we'd kind of strung them along for a week saying we probably could, until we realised, for whatever the reason was, I don't know, maybe again it was I'd probably developed a new food allergy, because that's all I seem to do these days.
One has to have a hobby.
Well, if you're going to do anything with your time, develop a new food allergy. I added bananas last month. I mean, for God's sake. Wow. Of all the things to anyway, so nobody needed to know that, so I'll carry on. I'm sorry, I've literally had 1.5 beers now, so I'm out of my mind because I haven't drunk for so long.
Oh no, we might lose the narrative thread.
My friend, if we don't lose the narrative thread, then something's gone very, very wrong indeed. So they got back to us and said, well, would you do it as a McCluskey show? And I'm like, well, that's not really a thing, to be honest. So I had to think about it, but then I saw this Poundland Shellac thing, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck that. I'm going to do a show, and I'm going to make a little bit of money from it. Because there is still that little bit of guilt about when you actually make money from the thing. There's something about it which makes you feel uneasy, and you want to double check yourself because usually when people make money, it's because they're taking advantage of people.
Unfortunately.
But the way I've always looked, if you do a show and everything's good and everyone has a good time, it should kind of pay the amount so everybody comes away with the equivalent of a kind of decent minimum wage. So when you actually come away from a show with, dare I say it, £400, you're like, fuck. Like, what has just happened to me?
Right.
I had the best time in the world. Everyone liked me, or at least most of the people. There would have definitely been people moving towards the corners who are muttering about that cunt with a massive forehead. That's all fine, but And then we just got like another couple of offers for shows. I made a point of not chasing any shows at all because I found, frankly, that when people come to you with offers and they really want you to play, they offer you a lot more money than if you don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, they do. If somebody comes to you and say, I want you to play, and I want you to, when you've got a record to quote unquote promote, people know that you've got to play shows. It's part of the thing. Whereas we were in the position where we didn't have to do shows. So someone would say, do you want to come and play in Leeds? You'd go, sure. And they'd go, how about for this much? And you go, oh, sorry, no worries, but that isn't enough. Don't worry about it, but it's fine. And then they suddenly come back with twice as much money. And you go, okay, well, I guess we'll do it for that. But similarly, it's a question of making a little bit of, and you know, I'm still talking about making the kind of money an Office Junior would still think was derisive.
Yeah.
But by the standards of most professional musicians, is a reasonable amount of money. So it just kind of it went in that way, and it only got to the stage where certainly with you learn that. Obviously, people in bands are touchy. I'm a person in a band myself. I've grown over the years. I think I've always been trying for decent. But you get better as you go on. You get better with dealing with everybody. You find that promoters are just as touchy as individuals in bands. If you don't, because we were waiting for people to contact us. Mm-hmm. So we didn't send out some group email to people saying, "Hey, we want to do these shows. Anybody want to offer us anything?" So inadvertently, in a couple of cities, we ended up offending people who we'd worked with in the past. Which is, well, you know, I mean, it goes both ways. You know, maybe if they really wanted to put us on, seeing as we're doing shows, they could have contacted us and said they wanted to put us on. But it's the last, how long has it been? Like 8 months or so? It's just been, apart from, like I say, a couple of little problems dealing with promoters, it's been fantastic. Really, some really great shows, really uncomplicated. If there's been a critical word, nobody's put it to me. And no, but I don't even mean that in a hey, check me out. I can say things quickly, yeah. But it's
But I can. To be clear, I can.
To be clear, I can, and I will testify to that in court. It's been really fantastic, and I know that it's the best version of the band there's ever been. But somebody isn't compelled to think that coming away from it. If somebody is still welcome to come and see it or not come and see it as they see fit, and for that to be a pale imitation of whatever it is they remember from that perfect intersection of time and music when they were a particular age in, say, 2002 or 4 or whatever the fuck. But it's just been really... It's been really fantastic, and to play those songs with all the people on stage. I mean, we've only done a total of maybe 16 shows or something. 16 or so. Oh no, maybe it's about 18 now. With the last 2 shows we did are when I not strongly suspect, but when I suspect that I may have had coronavirus. And by suspect, I say I think there's maybe a 20-25% chance, because it would have been relatively very early for Britain before any, certainly before there was any major spread. But I was so ill. I mean, I was so ill. I've had bad flus before, but I sought. I knew I'd get there eventually. Advice at the time. But I was told that since I hadn't travelled back from Wuhan, and spoiler alert, I've never been to Wuhan, right? Within the last 14 days, that I couldn't possibly have it. But I had temperature, cough, lying in bed, lost 8 pounds in weight, and then during 2 shows, 9 days into it, actually called my wife to tell her that I loved her, and to tell my daughter that I loved her, because I thought I was going to die in my sleep. So
Right.
that's how ill I was. And all I'm saying, if that wasn't it, then I fucking hope it's not worse than that.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was shit, mate. Like it was. I literally did not go to sleep one night in a travel lodge in Nottingham, and believe me, nobody wants to die in a travel lodge in Nottingham. I mean, that combination of words is just too horrendous to even contemplate. I didn't go to sleep because I thought if I went to sleep I wouldn't wake up. So it's either the worst flu I've ever had, and the thing is, I'm a hypochondriac at the best of times, as I've probably said on a million occasions, and I was very aware of coronavirus even at the time. But I kept checking. I'm like, this must be this. I am fucking dying.
Right.
And during the shows, I mean, some people ended up getting ill off that as well. Just nobody seriously, as far as I'm aware. So there certainly weren't any fatalities involved or whatever. I mean, to a fact I'm incredibly grateful for. It was just horrendous. I mean, like I say, I took every precaution, but there were so many of the symptoms then being nailed down a month or so later, which just made me feel like I really should have gone directly to fucking hospital.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's already been a few notable deaths in America, for sure. And even though some of them, John Prine wasn't exactly in the prime of his life necessarily, but that fell from the fountains of Wayne wasn't that old, And it's
well, a friend of Julia's who she hasn't seen for a good few years, who's like the same age as us, like mid 40s, died yesterday.
Aye.
So and the college she works at, two people who worked there were in intensive care. I know one is out of intensive care now, but the other one I'm not sure as to their status. They were a little bit older, in their 60s, and I know it wasn't looking very good for them. So it's the thing is, though, it shouldn't take those personal connections to make this hit home for people.
It shouldn't, but again, I think a lot of people here didn't pay attention until sports was canceled, and a lot of people in Wisconsin didn't pay attention until the bars closed. I mean, it's whatever gets people paying attention.
Well, here they basically said the pubs are going to close after tonight, which is just
yeah. Well, don't worry, everybody. COVID-19 has taken the night off.
Have you ever been to Britain before? Like, the pubs are closing after tonight. One last chance to get a fatal disease like that. Make sure you push up against people, because if anybody there has it, then you fucking got it now. You daft cunts. And this is why you need. I do have one friend who seems to have gone straight to, we should have a soldier at the end of every street. And you're like, well, let's think about that. At the end of the day, soldiers are tools of the state with guns, and
be careful.
When we need them to fight off an alien horde with hilarious results, then fantastic. But in the interim, let's maybe hold back on that. But we could have we could have laws rather than advice. My advice to you is stay home and don't die. My advice to you is don't jump off this bridge.
Yeah, solid advice.
Yeah. Hey, what can I say? I've been using bridges for years. Never jumped off one. Still alive.
Have you considered being a life coach?
Have I considered being a life coach? You know what? I just looked at my bank account and no, I have not considered being that.
So, but you did make a little bit of money with these McCluskey shows. It seems like they was more on the adventure side of things, coronavirus potential notwithstanding. People were glad to see the songs played live.
They were. It was fantastic. I mean, Australia, when we were there, and sadly, it's impossible to see Australia as anything but the highlight of it. It was just incredible. The Kiwi shows we did at the end were really good, apart from when I ate some stuff I shouldn't have eaten and ended up with a huge allergy attack for the last day and a half, which is fantastic. I mean, it's so wonderful to be allergic to egg. Wonderful, because it's not like egg tastes wonderful or anything. But anyway, but the Australian shows were just, I mean, even as a musician who's just been playing for years, just awe-inspiring. Really, really incredible. Like, there's so much. It sounds like just like mawkish sentiment, but with that, you can do anything with that kind of love in good faith. You really can, and you can have so much fun, and you can have those moments which, you know, don't necessarily define your life, but those little bookmark moments that you'll remember like forever, and being, you know, mostly. It's kind of, as much as I like a beer or two, it's kind of better getting a little bit older, not being able to drink as much, especially the way my throat is for singing, if singing is the right word for what it is. So I have a beer or two, and one night I got very drunk, which is unusual for me. It's just not my thing. I don't like not being somewhat in control of myself. It's just not something I enjoy. If I have to think about what I'm saying, I mean, right now I'm pretty pissed because I've had nearly 2 small bottles of beer, and I'm mortified. I'm mortified. I'm having to think sometimes, but on stage, I wouldn't put myself in that position. You know, I just won't let that happen anymore. But as a result of being incredibly sober, and I'm not saying I was wasted in the earlier part of, you know, my musical career, but I'd certainly have had a couple of drinks most nights on stage. But I'm remembering all of it, and it's incredible. It's just incredible. Just wonderful. And sometimes you put in all that work and you feel very disillusioned. Not just that work, but the time and the anticipation that you put into something, and you really don't necessarily feel as if you've got everything out of it that you deserve to get. But during those shows, and most of the shows over the last year, it's just been, of those shows we've done over the last year, I can think of 3 which were fine, really good shows, great. I wouldn't want to spoil the memories of anybody who was at those shows by saying it was just okay. But the other shows have all been just incredible. I lose the ability to be articulate when I'm talking about something, which makes me very happy because frankly I don't have a lot of practice at it.
Well, you know, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of awe in one's life, especially when it comes time to things that quite frequently tend to drive disappointment. You know, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
But no, wonderful. Like rock music. The times I've actually forgotten about all this crazy shit which is going on. I mean, is actually Damien, who plays in McCluskey Asterix now. He did a Premier League football quiz last night, and that was really good, just to slip out of the immediate for the moment and just to do a stupid thing like that. But apart from that, apart from actually talking to a toddler, which is just wonderful on most levels, you know, apart from when you do something funny and they go again and you have to do it again and they go again, and that again then ends up as an infinite loop, like a hidden track at the end of a 9 Inch Nails album, but with a melody.
Yeah, it's like working the Borscht Belt as a comedian. You just have to do the same bit over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. But actually, I haven't had much. I'm having a little bit of issues with my setup. I'm getting quite a lot of this very interesting stuff. A little, like this weird hum from my pedals board that I haven't been able to diagnose yet. But apart from that, I've just been on the occasions, the couple of hours I've had here or there to write music or dive into something I'm writing, and just the different world that music sends you into. It's like. It's a therapy for people who don't like to, I think, write down the word therapy or explicitly think of it that way, you know? It's just a thing to really escape into. And I've felt in the last few years, I've always loved music, of course, that's why I got loved in music, but I feel very, very lucky to be involved in music. By that I don't even necessarily mean the people in it. They're fantastic, don't get me wrong, but the actual music itself, when you lose yourself in it, it's just the best feeling in the world. And recently I've come out of it sometimes after a couple of hours and you're like, oh yeah, all that shit. You know,
this is all right.
The world, but there is an amazing ability that music has, and the only thing which has changed about me is I explicitly recognize it now when things maybe aren't so good. I just explicitly seek it out. I go, I'll just do music for 2 hours, it'll be fine.
Fascinating. So you are the ambulance.
Yeah.
No, that's lovely, and it's. It must be nice to kind of look back and rediscover some of those McCluskey songs, and maybe question where the breathing would be, but otherwise,
no,
like
don't do any of that. I mean, the thing is with those songs is that for the most part, really fucking easy as well. Like,
right.
They are easy. They're not easy on my throat. Like I say, I have to be careful. I have to be a professional about it. There were a couple of Irish shows where I had a cold in September and I was really struggling to get through. I ended up getting through it, but the levels of stress were real because people have paid close to 20 quid a ticket or something.
Right. And
they deserve a show. It's light entertainment, a show to me. That's what it is. You deserve a show. So my anxieties were, I don't want to let anybody down in that environment. But like, yeah, apart from that, like actually the physical playing of the songs, the McCluskey songs, is almost ludicrously easy. To the point where when Julia played the McCluskey songs when we first did them for the more charity aspect, I mean, that was very much just Future the Left does McCluskey songs. Right. Whereas now it is McCluskey Asterix. It's a three-piece as the band was. And that's the way it is. But both Julia and then Damien, when he was learning the bass lines, would just, well, Julia didn't call me because we live in the same house because we're married, but she would say, is this it? And I'd go, yeah, that's it. It's like, so there's a song called The World Loves Us is our bitch. And
yes.
it goes, and I'm going to really excite everybody by singing tablature.
Yes.
But I'm going to sing tablature to you now, right? So this is proper radio. It goes non 333, non 555, non 333, non 555, and that's the whole song. The only thing which changes is the emphasis in which it's played in different places. That's it. But that's the whole riff. And that's not a claim that's clever or ingenious. That's just what the riff was. And that can be a bit confusing, but it's more the sound of the bass underpinning that song rather than the rhythm and the sound of it as opposed to the fucking, the notes. Of course, you can see at times why John, who was the bass player in McCluskey, maybe got a bit bored playing one bass line for a whole song. But you can't teach patience.
Well, and it's got to be interesting that there's folks that never got to see that band the first time around too. Also, so that's nice that they.
Yeah, I would say though 90% of the audiences were probably there the first time round. But yeah, some much younger people as well. I mean, the show's definitely older. Doesn't mean there's no doubt. Well, spoiler alert, we're all getting older because time is linear. But it's the whole thing has just been an incredible experience, and also an experience where we actually got to make a little bit of money, which might sound like a crass thing to talk about, but it shows that it is possible to make money whilst also being incredibly ugly. So there we are.
And so, of course, at some point, one would hope that there will be touring again. Has there been anything other than loose talk about bringing that and or Future of the Left over to the US again, since it's been so long?
Well, Future of the Left isn't at all possible because it just isn't. I mean, records haven't been released there for the last 2 since 2012, and the only way Future of the Left would work is I can't imagine, unless something weird happens, I can't imagine Future of the Left just, and by not working, I mean we could definitely play a couple of some really good shows in 7 of the cities which are the biggest cities ever. So I won't say even what they are.
Right.
But we'd come over and we'd have a nice time, and we'd lose with the 30% withholding tax plus the cost of the visas, and the fact that having done it loads of times, I just want to tour in a splitter van, and that doesn't make me Axl Rose at this stage. It makes me somebody who wants to actually be able to sleep, as opposed to a guy in his mid-20s who can wing it anymore. I can't wing it anymore. I'm fine with a cheap motel, but there are certain things I just can't compromise on anymore when I'm doing a long tour. I just can't do it.
I think that's natural. I mean, there's certain things that, again, you don't feel are important, or maybe just aren't important when you're younger, and then you're like, you know what, that has become important to me.
No, it's actively enjoyable to sleep on people's sofas during your first 6 tours. It's you meet people. If you're a single young person, you think, hey, I might meet somebody. And it's part of it. It's exciting. It's an adventure. But the adventure for me now is almost purely in the music.
Right.
The rest of it is fantastic. But the adventure is contained within the time on stage now. That's something which it was always the focus for me, but now it's as good as the entirety. So I would love, because Future of the Left we haven't had a rehearsal for a year because of various kid things, but also the fact we're all in different cities, and Julia's job schedule. Jack's doing lots of drum teaching now, but it's very difficult to do things. If that band ends up not doing anything more, it's just because things can't be sacrificed to push it forward, which is a shame. But at this stage, without us moving, we've considered moving somewhere like maybe Bristol, but that's only if it works with Julia's job. I want it to continue as a band very much, so it's still the passion, but I just don't see how it can continue at the minute, So it's a work in progress in that sense, because I'm in a position where basically my day job is looking after a child, but I have complete flexibility outside that, because obviously I have a child with my wife who's also in the band, to do whatever. But I'm in a band with 2 people who also have children who don't have that flexibility. So you're only as flexible as your least flexible member,
right?
I suppose. That's what it comes down to. In terms of, and we need to get together to write songs. We've got about 9 great songs half written, but being half written is no fucking good to anyone. In terms of McCluskey, it's easier to do because I can just go and do McCluskey stuff, and Julia will, or pay for a babysitter here. Taking a small child on tour is something for rich people, isn't it?
That must be wonderful for those that can, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, and it must be, and you know what? It still must be an incredible challenge, and that's not to say that those people don't think long and hard about how to do it properly, and that must be absolutely the case. With McCluskey, it's more realistic because that band is more popular. Although I say that, it probably is more popular. I reckon. What am I saying? I reckon. I look at the ticket sales, and it's about 25% more popular than Future of the Left. It just is, on the basis of these shows we've just done recently, because there's maybe more of a novelty to it. I did speak to an agent about doing some shows in the States, and even though there's the potential of some, and they said potentiality, sorry, I would have had to punch myself in the balls if I'd gone through that. The potential of some really
be very proactive when
shows.
you do it too.
Absolutely, there's a potential of some really well-paying shows, which would make it all make sense. But as opposed to say 5-6 years ago, when I love touring the States, it's my favorite thing to do. Just to look out of a van window and see the Rockies go by, or just to talk to people in a bar in Seattle or whatever is just the best time a person can have whilst also getting to play songs. But financially, if I'm going away for home for 3 weeks, I need to come back with some proper money to pay for the childcare that I've missed.
Certainly, yeah.
And it's just not financially feasible. Even though that was, if I told you how much some of the fees were offered, then that would seem ludicrous to you. But I'm afraid when you do the sums and when you take off the huge taxes, it's just the case you can't guarantee making money, and it's awful. But you go away for a month. If you got a child at home, you got to look after them for a month. You're gonna have to come back with several £1,000s to pay for that. I mean, I live in London. The nursery where we live is like, it's the equivalent of about $140 a day.
Right.
So
it's not cheap.
No, it's not cheap, and they're fantastic. I'm very happy to leave my daughter there back in the before times.
Yeah.
Before all this stuff happened. If I sound a bit mad at the minute, is because I'm basically doing Monday to Friday 9 or 6, just looking after an adorable small girl, and it's not really the constituency of rock music talk.
No, that's fine, and it's
as absolutely and genuinely magical an experience as it is. I mean, you get to play with fucking water pistols. When do you get to do that in your normal life?
Yeah, sounds okay.
Yeah, you get to read lots of children's books, which frankly are a lot better than rock lyrics, most of them. There's some really clever rhyme schemes going on. The downside being that you end up writing a lot of sing-song sounding songs, because this is everything that you do. But no, it's large, and you get to play football as well. You get to go down the park and you get to play chase. And nobody looks. If as an adult, if you chase each other, you get strange looks, don't you?
A little bit, usually, yes.
Yeah, look at those daft cunts playing chase in the bar. What's up with them? Whereas if you do it with a toddler, everyone says it's fine. He's playing chases with the toddler.
No one gives you a second look.
Nobody gives you a second look. So you know what? It's an incredible, magical experience. I recommend it to everything except your back.
So it's always a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Oh no, an absolute pleasure. And you know what? I never know unless it's Radio 1. I never know that there's going to be more than 11 people listening to anything. But it's just nice. It's just nice to talk to a friend and to do all that stuff as well.
Well, likewise. And I can tell you right now, it's more than 11 for sure.
More than 11? Well, mate, everything's a bonus. No, but you can't talk with an audience in mind. Is my point. You can't think that this is the that you're speaking to so many people or whatever. You've just got to have a conversation, and obviously we did touch on music at times.
Every once in a while was discussed. Yes.
Yeah, we certainly were music adjacent at least 3 junctures. So hopefully that'll be sufficient.
Well, if someone were to subtitle Protonic Reversal as music adjacent, I think we'll be totally okay with that. That'd be
music
fine.
Music adjacent, yeah, it's that'll actually do. But no, an absolute pleasure. An absolute pleasure to speak to you, and you enjoy. Hey, let's try and be positive. Enjoy the pandemic as much as you can.
Enjoy your quarantine. Yes.
Listen, at least get from it and like a personal narrative which can sustain you through the next phase of your life.
No pressure. No pressure.
No, do that, but don't. But like I say, and don't be dismissive of people who end up cooped up in their flat and do a concept album around the life of some Fusili. You know, just don't judge those people. Let them. I think there's been a lot of sneering online. Oh, imagine all the fucking shit novels. You're like, okay, yeah, I write my own shit novels, so I get that. Maybe I'm being defensive, but maybe you should put something out into the world before you decry the things which are not even fucking out yet.
I have a real problem with people that are quick to jump on the hate train for things that also refuse to engage with things they like. I think that's foolish.
Well, that's the
cowardly.
thing. I have no problem with buying a ticket for the hate train, but
they're very cheap these days.
You've also got to be putting something out into the fucking world. You know, Tell me what you don't like, but I want to hear what you like. I mean, sometimes you have to have that as a policy. I'm naturally inclined towards, at least I think I do, towards the fucking miserable. So I'm very quick, or maybe overly keen sometimes, to tell people about things I like. Because I've discovered the thing I like, I must.
You want to share it, yes.
Like this. I have a friend who said to me the other week, he went, "Please don't tell me to read The Sisters Brothers again. You've told me to read that now 8 times. If you tell me one more time, I'm gonna fucking land you." You're like, okay, that must have been the thing I was telling myself to recommend to people around that time. But anyway, I know you've got another interview to do with a person from a proper band that people have actually heard of. So,
well, don't sell yourself short, Falco. There's plenty of people that.
Sir, I will sell myself medium.
Very well. Well, the medium seller is welcome on this show at any time to talk to the affable misanthrope. And
marvelous. And I hope to see you in person one day, you daft cunt.
Yes, that would be more than lovely. That would be wonderful.
Marvelous. Take care. Kiss, kiss. Go well.
Okay, take care, brother. There he is. One of a kind. Hell of a guy, hell of a discography. Yeah. It's Falco, baby. So christianfitness.bandcamp.com to get at the Christian fitness stuff. No, not that. Highly recommended. All the albums. We never did talk about You Are the Ambulance, which is the funniest thing about that bit is we did not in fact talk about You Are the Ambulance, but it's a great record. christianfitness.bandcamp.com. You can also get all the Featured Left stuff or the McCluskey stuff in all the different places that you would imagine you'd be able to get things. All right.
Are we going?
There we go.
Is this thing on?
Thank you for listening to another episode of Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. This show airs on Radio Nope. Thursdays, usually. But also quite frequently these days. At other times. Usually 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, 5 p.m. Pacific. No idea what it is in London or Germany. Sorry.
We come to the close of our broadcast day.
On RadioNope.com, RadioNeutron.com for the archives.
Farewell transmission.
If you want to get the episode sooner, Patreon.com/Protonic Reversal, $1 a month. Not that bad. Not that bad.
Mr. and Mrs. America, all ships at sea.
No ads, no sponsors, no kidding.
Anyone within the sound of my voice.
Live listeners, we got Dwayne Dennison from G's Lizard up next. Stay tuned.
I've got 50,000 watts of power.
Thanks for those that have shared the show around. It helps people find out about it. I appreciate that. We're using the royal we in this case.
This microphone turns sound into electricity.
Stay safe.
Hear me now?
And check you later.
Out on Route 128, we're dark and lonely. I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? 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 See in the radio. And that snare drum and that drum roll means we've got a winner. If you're the fifth caller, or any caller at all, welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear me now? emergency!